Right now, the word floating around in governments and that and mainstream media is residential school denialism. They're trying to deny that it even happened, that there's bodies buried, and so on. And I told him that. He just dropped his face and he dropped his head and he shook his head. You couldn't believe it that people were talking like that. He says, "I remember," he says, "when kids were being taken. The parents were yelling and screaming. The kids were screaming. They were gone. And a lot of the time," he says, "they never come back and you hear all the stories of them being killed," he says. So he said, denialism, no. He said, that is not true.
Tansi, hello everybody. Sean McDonald, Métis man here. Welcome to my YouTube channel.
I was born a Métis, born on Métis land, raised on a settlement, proud to be a Métis man. Well, today I work in white man's world. I'm married to a Métis girl.
Alrighty, folks. Once again, Sean McDonald, Métis man here. And now I am joined with one of our good council members here, Mr. David Thompson. And David, I want to first of all congratulate, council, and the organizer of this event. Such a great event. And can you maybe tell me just a little bit about the day and what it represents to our community and to Indigenous people in itself?
To me, it's a very important day because learning from history of the people that were taken from home. Could you imagine somebody coming up to your home, grabbing your little 3-year-old or taking your little 3 or 4-year-old, and you never see them? And sometimes you didn't see them at all. Like, for example, we had a gentleman here, an elder, Melvin Whitford,
yes,
who went through the residential school system. And when he came home, from me talking with him, he said, I didn't know what cousin meant. I didn't know what auntie or uncle meant.
Really?
Because I didn't know who they were.
Right.
He was taken at a very young age along with his siblings.
Wasn't he, like I heard, wasn't he in school, I think 14 years in residential school?
Yes, they actually came out when he was 16 years old.
Wow.
So me hearing stories like that, it makes me feel sad because that could have been me, yeah, or that could have been one of my kids.
Yes.
And how do you fight them? Or how did you stop them? You couldn't.
Yeah.
It was part of the government and the religious, I guess, whichever way you want to put it,
I say bluntly, it's the Catholic religion, right? So
yeah, but to me, today, it's just very important for us to continue, for our young ones to learn and realize what their relatives went through.
No, that boy, you're right. And I was talking to my uncle just about 2 days ago. He just turned 100 about 5 months ago, my Uncle Andy. And he's not Indigenous himself, but he has a very good memory. And he knew what was going on back then. So I asked him that question about residential schools. And I said, Uncle, do you know the word denialism? And he said no at first. I said, denial, Yes, I know that. I said, well, right now the word floating around in governments and that and mainstream media is residential school denialism. They're trying to deny that it even happened, that there's bodies buried, and so on. And I told him that. He just dropped his face and he dropped his head and he shook his head. You couldn't believe it that people were talking like that. He says, I remember, he says, when kids were being taken. The parents were yelling and screaming. The kids were screaming. They were gone. And a lot of the time, he says, they never come back and you hear all the stories of them being killed, he says. So he said, denialism, no. He said, that is not true.
I remember going to school, Sean, and same with you. I never heard of residential school. Mm-hmm. I never heard a thing about it.
No.
Until we got older.
Yes.
And then now, today, that it's being broadly widecast broadly, that
yep,
even the federal government is made it a national holiday now.
Yeah.
But to me, growing up, I never heard of residential school. I went to Sunday school. Yep. I didn't go very long. I skipped a lot of it, But the thing is, to me, it's very, very important for our younger kids to learn about this.
Yes.
And I'm hoping it never happens again.
Yep.
Because the way things were back then, some didn't even make it home, and that's the sad part, the very sad part about it.
Yep.
Some made it home, but they didn't talk about it.
Yep.
They just kept it shut and kept it to themselves. So you could imagine the stories or the horror that went through those schools at that time.
Yeah, no, exactly. I don't know if you know that you're aware of this, but you talked about how me and you, we didn't know much about it when we were growing up, and you're right about that. but it was kept quiet. It was kept quiet by our ancestors. By my Mooshum went to school, and I just talked about it, and I said, you know, he ran away many times, and he was beaten. He was caught, beaten, brought back, and he finally ran away, and he made it into the States, and he went there for years till he come back, right? And then what does he do to a country that wanted him dead and beat him to death, you know, or almost beat him to death? He joined the army to fight for this country. You know, like, what does that show about our people? But the reason why you and I, you know, people like you and I grew up not knowing about it, because they hid it to protect us, you know, and they were so hurt themselves, they couldn't show love, right? And they didn't want to talk about it. They were, you know, back then they called it shell shock. You know what I mean? And they didn't want to talk about it until they got older. Then they started talking about it, like my Mooshum, telling his kids, and then it passed on to us, right? And that's why I find a bunch of generational trauma to our people because of it. Like me, I'm only second generation from my Mooshum that this happened, right? And I was talking about to a couple of elders a couple of days ago. I said, my Mooshum didn't know about love. He wasn't taught that because he was raised in a residential school system. So how can my Mooshum teach my dad and his siblings love? And then so on. It just carries on and on, right? So we're trying to break that chain. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take generations, right? But that's why our people, you know, we have addictions, you know, drugs, alcohol, and all that, because that's how some of us deal with pain, right? And is it right? Well, I'm not going to judge, you know. I was there myself at one time, right? I quit drinking many years ago on that. But many of us, we can't break that cycle, right? So it's a bunch of trauma for all of our people. And days like this, it helps us heal. We talk about it, we hear the stories, and we bring awareness, right? So again, I commend yourself, you know, council, and the organizers of this great event. You guys did a hell of a job.
I'd like to say something else. I watched a show on APTN one time. It was called First Contact.
Okay.
If you ever have a chance to watch that, you watch it. Okay. We are all stereotyped with the same thing. Yes. We're lazy. We don't want to work. But we want to pay our debt in society just as well as anybody else. Yep. So to me, I was working, and the discrimination is today. Yes. I was working in the union not so long ago, maybe in about 2007, having lunch. Guy sitting behind me said, Indian.
Really?
I never said nothing. I didn't think he was talking to me.
Yeah.
I'm Métis, very proud of it. Yes. Indian, I'm talking to you.
Wow.
I said, excuse me, are you talking to me, sir?
Yes.
He said, yeah, I'm talking to you, Indian.
Wow.
I said, excuse me, sir, I'm Métis. Yes. But if I was Indian, I'd be very proud of it too. Yes. I'm proud of my culture, just the same way you are proud of your culture. Yes. So it is still going on today, and we're still facing it. But you know what? Right. We're proud people. We are. We'll never let anybody knock us down. If they knock us down, we'll get up. Get back up. And we'll keep going. Exactly. No, I like that, David. So any last thoughts you want to share with the public there, or the audience there about this day and that? And just continue doing it year after year. But to me, they should always be in your heart every day, not just once a year, every day. Exactly. I like what you said there about continuing to do it. Last year I was in Kamloops, and I talked to one person, an elder, didn't want to be in camera, but I said, I hear all these stories about, you know, our people burning down the residential schools and stuff like that. I said, here you guys you're taking care of the Kamloops. It's now in your care and attention. I said, and you guys are restoring it. I said, so why are you doing opposite of what most people would do and burn it down? One reason, Sean, he says, awareness. This is a sign right here. This building here is a sign, he says, to show the rest what happened. We're never going to let them forget what they did to our people. If we burn it down, he says, it's slowly going to disappear in memory. He said, but if we keep it standing forever, he says, it's always going to be burned into their memory. And they just floored me with that answer. Just floored me. Well, I got one last thing to say, Sean, is they try to keep them quiet. Yep. But yet in the grave, they're still talking today. Yes. They're finding them all over. Exactly. They'll never keep us quiet. That's right. No, that's a good note to add on there, David. So again, thanks again, my friend. Thank you. You know, and I wish yourself and the fellow councilors and all the candidates running there in the coming election good luck, and keep up the good work. Thank you. Thank you, David. There you have it, folks. Métis man coming from Kikino again. So, Iksamaga, kinaskom tinawao. Métis man out.
Thanks everybody for watching. Kinaskom tin. Please like, share, and subscribe. Iksamaga.